Hey, what's up you guys? So today I wanted to do my Christmas wish list for 2020. So this is all of the books that I don't currently have that I would really like to have so that I can get to them, so that I can read them, so that I can fall in love with them, because I've heard such good buzz around these books, or they're like the end to a series that I want to finish. So let's kick it off with the first book that is on my wish list, which is A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor. So this is the second book in the Carl's duology by Hank Green, and I read the first one earlier this month and I absolutely enjoyed it. I love Hank's take on online fame, and I also loved his take on a lot of political issues as well, and how politicized the world has become because of social media. I think that that is just an interesting look at things, and I think that as someone who is in the realm of social media, looking at that and seeing how politicized things can become, I just think that it is a fascinating thing to discuss. And I think it is something that we really need to start discussing some more, is how it really becomes an us versus them mentality rather than an actual fighting for whatever you believe in. So I think that that is something that really needs to be addressed in today's society, and so I loved that he kind of brought that to the forefront of his book, and he brought online fame and he brought all of that together, and I think that it was just such a great combination of things. I loved how random the science fiction felt. I just loved it so much. It felt like a Green Brothers book, and I just loved it, and I cannot wait to start A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor and finish out the series, especially because an absolutely remarkable thing left off at the perfect moment for me. I think that it left off on such a good cliffhanger. I just need to know what happens next. So the next book that is on my Christmas wish list is A Sky Beyond the Storm. This is the fourth book in the An Ember in the Ashes series, and if you would like to know my thoughts on the series up to this point, I do have book talks for all three of the earlier books, An Ember in the Ashes, A Torch Against the Night, and A Reaper at the Gates, so you can check out any one of those and kind of see what my thoughts are. But overall, this series, I absolutely love it so far. The first two books, I think they kind of missed the mark on the first beginning parts of the book, but it really picked up at the end of the book, and then A Reaper at the Gates really just brought together everything that Sapa Tahir was doing so well in those first two books, and she just really improved upon the things that I didn't think she was doing as well, such as that beginning period where it was just a little bit too action-packed for me to really latch onto the characters. So because of that, I really want to read A Sky Beyond the Storm, because the last book just left me so ripped apart. Like, I really cried reading that book. If you want to know some more of my thoughts on that one specifically as well, I do have a vlog where I read it for the DCG readathon, which is still probably going on whenever I post this. You can check out that vlog. It should be my vlog 4 for the readathon. Anyways, I just would really love to read A Sky Beyond the Storm, see how that story ends. If you want to know what An Ember in the Ashes is about, it is about a girl who winds up spying for a resistance movement made up of scholars, and she winds up spying at a military academy where there is a boy who wants to leave the military academy, who is not really the biggest fan of what this empire is doing, and so they kind of meet, hit it off, and from there the book unfolds. So overall, great series, highly recommend. So the third book on my Christmas wish list is A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I enjoyed The Hunger Games. I really love the first book. I think the second book is okay. I think the third book, I hate the third book so much in that series. It's just the most disappointing thing. But I would really like to read A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes to see if Suzanne Collins can kind of pick this series back up for me and make me really fall in love with it again, because that third book really just broke my heart, and I want to know if she can write another book that I enjoy, because she did write a good first book. So I'm just curious about A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, especially because The Hunger Games made up such an integral part of my bookish journey to where I am today, because that was definitely the book series that got me started on my little dystopian craze, which I think it did for most people. So I'm just curious. If you don't know what A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is about, it is a prequel for the Hunger Games series. So it follows President Snow before he is president, while he is just a mentor for the game. So the fourth book that is on my wish list is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo this year, and I absolutely loved it. And I believe for Daisy Jones and the Six, that is actually going to be getting an adaptation next year. I'm not entirely sure about that, so maybe do your own research. I don't know if I'm going to research it and put anything in here, so we'll see what I do in editing. But Daisy Jones 6, I believe, is a story about a rock band and how they kind of come to fame. And I absolutely love The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I think Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote such real characters in that book, and so I would love to pick up Daisy Jones in the 6 and see if she can do it again, because Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo became an instant favorite for me. Like, that book has stuck with me to this day. There are just some lines that I will not ever forget, and I wouldn't want to spoil you by telling them to you, because they are like plot-changing lines. The 5th book on my Christmas list is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. This year I read the Throne of Glass series. I had already read Throne of Glass a few years back, but I had not read the rest of the series, and so this year I decided to finally finish the series, and oh boy did I love it. I have book talks up for the entire series, so you can check out any one of those if you want to know my thoughts. But Throne of Glass is about an assassin who winds up joining a competition to become the King's Champion. And this series, oh buddy, was it the most exciting thing ever. And so I know that Crescent City is another fantasy series by Sarah J. Maas. I'm not entirely certain as to what the plot is surrounding it, but I would love to pick it up because I've loved her fantasy series up to this point that I've read. Because Throne of Glass was fantastic, A Court of Thorns and Roses was fantastic, so I would just really want to pick that up. The next book on my list is King of Scars. This year I also picked up Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, as well as Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, and I loved both of those series. Shadow and Bone, I think it really improved as the series went on. I do not think the first 2 books were overall fantastic, but the 3rd one I really enjoyed. So I am very curious to see what King of Scars really deals with, because I loved Six of Crows. That series was so fantastic. The way that Leigh Bardugo did the characters in that series, it was beautiful. And I know that King of Scars is about King Nikolai, who was my favorite character in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. So that's why I really want to pick that up and get to know him a little bit more, get to dive in deeper. And I know that it also follows another character from Shadow and Bone. I don't remember her name right now, but she was another kind of main character. She was like the bitch at the school or whatever, and I'm so curious. It seems like it'll be so good, because those characters were already great characters from the first series, and so I just want to see where they go and what happens with that. The next book on my list is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I have heard so many fantastic things about Brandon Sanderson and his writing, and this year I have just fallen back in love with fantasy, and I really want to continue reading so many more fantasies. And so Mistborn, I know it's a fantasy series, and I'm not entirely sure what it really follows, and I honestly don't want to. I think it would be fun to go into that series kind of surprised. So I would love to get Mistborn, figure out what it's about, and just see if I love Brandon Sanderson's writing like everyone else. And then maybe I'd pick up more books by him. I don't know. We'd see what would happen. So another book kind of like Mistborn that I don't know much about is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is another book that I've just heard fantastic things about, and I would really love to pick it up. I will say the cover has never really drawn my eye as far as covers go, so it hasn't really been on my list until this year. But this year I kind of was like, you know what? I really want to take the plunge into some more fantasy series, and this series seems like a great one to kind of add to the list. So I'm hopeful that I can get that book and then next year start it at some point and read that series, because I have heard phenomenal things. And again, I don't want to know much going into this series because it feels like it'd be a great series to uncover the world as you go along. I think that that is something that a strong fantasy novel should be able to do, is it should be able to uncover the world for you as you go along. You don't necessarily need to go in knowing the world. Another book that I would love is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I've heard such great things about her writing, and I've read a book by her which was The Archive way back in the day, and I did not like that book very much, so I've never really picked up another book by her. But since then I've heard such great things about her newer books, such as A Darker Shade of Magic, and so I would really love to pick that up and see how she has improved her writing up until this point. I believe that story is about two different sides of London, like you've got a gray London and a red London or something like that. Like you've got different Londons, and so it is just about those different Londons. If I remember correctly, I could be talking about the plot of a different book by her, but I believe that's what it's about. So I do really want to pick that up, see how she can do with that type of writing. Another book that I would really love to read is Poppy War. I don't remember who this is by, but it is about kind of, I believe, like Chinese histories where it takes place, and it's very military focused, and I believe it is about a girl who winds up going to a military academy, and she rises the ranks, and eventually there's like this war that happens or something. That is what I believe it is about, or at least that's what I've heard it's about. I don't know. I don't like going into books knowing too much. much. So that's what I know right now, and I would really love to pick it up because I've heard fantastic things. I know the series finished this past year, so I really want to read that entire series and kind of get in on the hype because everyone has said such great things about this series. Another book that is on my list is Cemetery Boys. This book seems very different from a lot of the things that I've read. Okay, so Cemetery Boys, I believe, is about a Latino family, and there is a trans boy, and he is the main character. And in this book, he is trying to show his family that he is a boy because they don't really believe him and they aren't very supporting of his transgenderness. And so he's trying to show them that he is a boy by using the magic that the boys use in the family. And so I believe that's what the story is about. So I really want to pick that up because it just sounds so different, and it sounds like it is doing a lot for representation, but also representation in a fantasy novel, in a fantasy styled world, which is always what I'm here for. So another book that I would love to pick up is A Curse So Dark and Lonely. This book has been getting a lot of hype recently, and I've heard such great things. It is a fairy tale retelling. I don't remember which one. I think it is Beauty and the Beast, if I'm not mistaken, and that's really all I know about it. But I also know that the last book comes out in January, so that's why I want to pick it up, is because I know this series is about to end, so I know that I can read all of the books all at once, and I can get a nice concise story, and I'm just excited for that. I love, love, love when I can just read a nice trilogy. So another book that I would love to pick up is Legendborn. This is a young adult book featuring a girl who is going off to college, and she starts to uncover some secret society style stuff. She starts to learn that there is kind of some magic involved in this world, and that is always something that I'm here for. I have not read a good urban fantasy in a while, so I would love to pick that up, read it, figure out what it's about. I've heard such fantastic things, and it honestly seems to me like it will be my next Shadowhunters style thing. At least that's what I'm hoping. So I want to pick that up and fall in love with it. And I do know that it is written by a Black author, and it features a Black female character, like a Black female protagonist. And so I am here for that representation. I am here for more inclusion. So I would love to pick that up. I would also like to pick up the Trials of Apollo series by Rick Riordan. I don't know how many books are out yet in this series, but I would love to at least pick out the first book because I've loved the Percy Jackson series, and I've heard fantastic things about the Trials of Apollo series, and I just want to read more by Rick Riordan because I haven't read anything by him in a while, and he really was one of my favorite authors as a kid. Like, I didn't necessarily love his books at first, but since then I've really fallen in love with his books, and I've fallen in love with his characters. I've fallen in love with his writing style, and honestly, as an adult, I still appreciate his writing style so much. It is still so much fun to go back and reread those books and still feel that same joy that I felt the first time I read them. And the last book on my wish list right now is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. So Laini Taylor, I read her Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy way back in the day, and I loved that trilogy. I thought it was such a fun trilogy, and I loved all the characters, and I loved the fantasy world. I loved how high fantasy it was without looking high fantasy at the beginning. I thought that was such a cool like twist to it. So I would really love to read her Strange the Dreamer duology. It looks, one, the cover looks beautiful, but two, I love Laini Taylor's writing style, so I think I would really enjoy this book. So that is kind of the books that are on my Christmas wish list for 2020. Those are the books that I want to pick up. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, comment what some of the books that you are hoping to get this Christmas are. I will see you in my next video. Bye!